Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Spartan Digital Network. My name is Guy Danhoff, and today we have a special for you, MBU Athletics. We're doing a COVID-19 update. I'm going to be joined by our Associate Vice President and Director of Athletics, Dr. Tom Smith. I'm also going to be joined by our Head Athletic Trainer, Meredith Dill, as well as our Associate Athletics Director who oversees our media and communications, Adam Samson. First of all, just want to say thank you guys for taking the time so we could do this update.
Sure.
So let's just jump right in. Let's begin with a brief update on the MBU teams and how they are approaching the scheduling with the NAIA announcement of the fall champions now being moved to the spring semester.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that one. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that I thank Meredith Dill and her team of people who've really helped this whole summer work on a COVID action plan. It's been a lot of changes, a lot of hard work, and I think that we have a plan. But in respect to the approaching schedule with the NAIA announcement of fall championships being moved to spring, the NAIA basically gave autonomy to all the conferences and the institutions to make the decision about how they want to practice and compete and have contests. As of now, the American Midwest Conference Council of Presidents, they went ahead and voted to keep the regular season and our conference championships in place for the fall. So that includes men and women's soccer, that includes women's volleyball, and men and women's cross country. And they will basically have split seasons. The Mid-States Football Association, however, has moved all their schedule to the spring, and we have opted to not have any competition during the fall session.
And then for those teams that will compete this fall, can you guys address what travel will look like for both our teams and our opponents coming onto MBU campus?
Yeah, I can take that one. So how it'll go is that both teams, the host and the traveling team, will be screened prior to departure for when that traveling team is leaving. They're going to be screened so that we can catch any positive screens at that point to determine if that game will still happen at that time. The team will then travel to us, and if it's outside of the 3-hour time frame, the team will be screened again. If it's within 3 hours, then an additional screening won't happen at that point in time. However, the officials, any game day staff, athletic trainers, anybody that's involved with making that game happen, live stream crew, all those individuals will be screened as well on the game day. And then in regards to overnight trips, we're trying to limit those. So if you can do a day trip instead of an overnight trip, that is being recommended and advised. Bus seating, hotel room assignments, for asking people to look at who do those individuals live with throughout the school year, have them sit together, have them room together if you're on the road, just trying to limit the contact with other individuals. Face masks are going to be required on the buses, in hotels, any team meetings during travel. Pretty much face masks are required except for while they're participating on the court or the field, but if they're on the sidelines not participating, they have to have them on. Each institution is being asked to have an isolation room. So let's say a team arrives here and we have a positive screen for the visiting team. We have a room designated where that individual will go to separate them from the rest of their team. And then in addition, for us, when we travel, we're doing an extra van. So if we have someone that screens positive while on the road, then they will be separated from the team and they'll be, they can arrive back to campus in a van. And again, just trying to limit the interactions that these student athletes have with each other.
And we might touch on a little bit of it a little bit later too. But one of the nice things is the competitions that we have scheduled for the fall right now. There's a large majority of those that are conference only. There may be a few non-conference contests here and there, but the majority of it is going to be conference. And Meredith will probably touch on some of the AMC protocols that helps it be consistent across the board with all of the AMC institutions, from from the top down, from the administration, athletic training staff. They all should be on the same page with these protocols. And then the one other thing that I'll touch on real quick, and Meredith, she is using the vocabulary. I think the screening versus testing, and we can get into that a little bit too. Just trying, like, if you can touch a little bit on really training our staff and our students when they're talking about this, the differences between screening versus testing, and if you can kind of touch on that, Meredith.
Yeah, so there's a difference, and a lot of times people want to combine the terminology. Unfortunately, there's a distinct difference between the two. So a positive screening is someone is showing signs and symptoms, or maybe they've been around someone that has tested COVID positive. So they are just they're screening positive because they're presenting with those signs and symptoms or have been exposed. That doesn't mean that they have COVID. What that means is we're going to red flag them. We're going to say, hey, we need to follow these protocols with you, and we're going to determine what needs to happen from there. An individual that tests positive means that they have actually been tested for COVID-19. And so we know that they are positive, and then we know they have to go into isolation. And then we're going to contact trace from there to determine who needs to go into quarantine because of their positive test.
And there's also another one of those, the quarantine versus isolation, and just making sure that we have all of those, that terminology down when we're talking to our teams and individuals, so that if something doesn't get blown out of proportion, if it's one thing or another.
Yeah, isolation is the individual has COVID-19. They have tested positive. They are in isolation. So it's a sick person that we are separating from others so that we prevent the spread of COVID-19. Quarantine is the person that's going into quarantine is not sick. They don't have COVID-19, but they have been exposed to somebody that is positive. And so there's an incubation period, which is 2 to 14 days. And what that means is that there's the time that after exposure that you can become positive for COVID-19. So that individual is not sick. They go into quarantine for 14 days because it can be up to 14 days that they show the signs and symptoms of having COVID-19.
It's a very thorough answer. Thanks, Adam, for adding to that, given those distinctions. Yeah. So with that, guys, we know it's August 14th. It's Friday. As you know, we said school starts on Monday. August 17th, and as of right now, this is the plan. But I have to ask this question again, so Spartan fans and parents and everyone associated with our program understands. What do you guys foresee the winter and the spring schedules will look like?
Yeah, so at this point, we have not eliminated non-conference competition. However, that potentially could happen depending on how things start this early here in the fall. But right now, what we've done is we've reduced the amount of practice time, and also we've reduced the schedule to a little bit more, where it works a little bit better. So there's a few minor reductions in game schedules. We are also making sure that there's a little additional time between practice sessions so that student athletes can exit properly and other student athletes can come on properly, either onto the field or onto the court. Proper sanitation is done in the locker room. If we have to utilize the locker room, which we have closed the locker rooms, only using them for contests at this point in time. So there's been some reduction in play, and it's mostly we are limiting most of our competition to conference competition.
Yeah, and I'll add in terms of the scheduling, some of that is very fluid at the moment, because there's so many different dominoes that are about to fall in the coming weeks, with the NAIA kind of determining when they'll set the spring championships, particularly for those fall championships that are moving to the spring. And there's going to be a lot of collaboration with coaches on our campus that maybe haven't collaborated in terms of scheduling in the past because they're all in different off seasons. But I think we're going to be seeing a lot of it's going to be a heavy schedule if we progress into the spring and carry on, we're going to see a lot of events going on, but there's going to be a lot of jockeying and with those schedules.
Right. Thank you, Adam. Well, this next question, speaking of collaboration, you guys know I'm really not a big fan of reading anything, but I do want to read this question because it is kind of lengthy, but very important. So here it is. There's been extensive collaboration that basically there's been committee work done on campus at the conference level, along with information even being disseminated from several different entities, which includes the NAIA, the St. Louis County Health Department, the CDC, and certainly others. If someone could you guys discuss what went into developing the COVID action plan specific to two entities? One would be to MBU as well as MBU athletics, and determining what was the best for our student athletes.
Yeah, so we took all those entities or those governing bodies, and we learned what they were looking for, what their guidelines were, what their protocols were. And like Adam said, it's a fluid situation. So it was often where we would feel like we had things down pat, and next thing we know, CDC is changing, how long isolation or quarantine is supposed to last. And so we took all those into consideration. And then I know that we also had conversations with AMC schools, and I had conversations with colleagues of mine that were not within the AMC, and literally bounced ideas off of each other. What does this look like for you? What are you doing in regards to this? And then we took that information and we looked at MBU. What are the resources that we have here? What are the different situations, scenarios that we'll be presented with? And that's how we started to create our plan and put it together. And we've had to alter things and change things along the way, but that was the main way that we were able to piece together the MBU plan, and specifically the MBU athletics one.
And
Yeah, so the MBU plan is a lot more extensive. Meredith chaired the athletic plan, which got dug deep into athletics. But the MBU plan as a whole has talked about reduction of classroom sizes,
Yep.
blended classroom environment, making sure that there are entrances and exits. The cafeteria is more of an encouraging a take out, similar to the restaurants. We developed an application. I'll show it to you here, and all student athletes and staff will need to complete this application. It is almost ready. And that is part of our screening process, where we'll ask a series of questions. And Meredith, you might want to talk about a little bit more about kind of the advantage, because we are a large athletic program here at the campus, why that's an advantage in a sense to the university because of the number of screenings and when we'll be screening our student athletes.
Oh, the app greatly helps our coaching staff out, as well as my staff in regards to screenings, because what we started with before the app existed was a piece of paper, and it has 9 questions that the kids have to read through and give yes or no answers. And we have to document then what they answered, in addition to taking their temperature. So now what they can do is they can complete the app, which was mimic the AMC questions.
Right.
They can just show us, did they get a green or did they get a red? And then we can just document, were they green or were they red, yes or no, and then take their temperature. So it helps with the screening process by having that app. The other advantage to the app is it's time stamped and has the date to it as well. So we're able to see what time they did it. Does it fall within the 3-hour time range? And if it doesn't, then we just ask them to do it again.
That's pretty cool. Another thing I will add, because I just went through training yesterday on this, obviously guys, as faculty, in addition, to wearing a mask, the administration has also provided, in addition, these face shields that we'll be wearing, as we conduct our classes. So again, it's great to see both plans coming together, certainly for the university as well as athletics, as they complement each other very well. So with that, Meredith, I'm going to start this question for you, but what are some of the athletic department and athletic training protocols specifically that have been modified due to COVID?
So athletics wise, Tom hit upon some of it. We have a buffer now between practices to allow for one team to exit before the other team enters. We're disinfecting in between each practices. In regards to coolers for my staff, we can only use one cooler per team. So we're having to clean those, disinfect those. No water bottles or towels can be shared. So each individual student athlete has to bring their own water bottle, and they're not to share them with each other. We're limiting the number of players that are at practice, not players, sorry, the number of people that can attend practice. So those that can participate, the coaching staff, athletic trainer, in regards to spectators, non-participants, managers, if it's not necessary that they be there, then they're not to be at practice. We are also under the guidelines of St. Louis County Health Department of how many people we can have in facilities. So some of that dictates some of how many people we can have present at a practice. We're encouraging coaches to create groupings for their teams so that those groups are together all the time. Again, if you can limit that one group from having contact with another group, if one of them was to be positive, you're only taking, hopefully only having to do 9 individuals that go into quarantine as opposed to an entire team that's going to go into quarantine. So we're encouraging them to set up the groups and to do social distancing during practice and not do full on contact or full on scrimmage every day. Try and limit the number of those to try and prevent it from, occurring on campus. In regards to athletic training, we are doing appointments only.
Okay.
So we are utilizing our sportswear injury tracking system, and they can go on there. There's a calendar and they'll have to schedule the appointment with us. We're also doing telehealth. So doxy.me is the telehealth that we're using. And if it can be a scenario where we talk them through it and we don't need to put our hands on them, we don't need them physically in front of us, then we're going to go that route with them. We're putting a first aid station and ice outside the athletic training room so that, again, if they have a minor thing, they don't really need us, but they need supplies, they can have access to it. We are limited to only 9 student athletes in the athletic training room at a time. So that's going to definitely change things, and it's going to be, a culture change for these student athletes. I think they'll become a little bit more dependent upon themselves for some of the things that they come in here and depend upon us for. And then we're wearing PPE gear when we interact with them, asking them to clean their hands when they enter, asking them to disinfect their hands when they leave. We're cleaning everything that they touch in between. So just a lot of those different measures that we're taking to try and be as careful as we can to allow athletics to continue on.
Right. So Tom, I want to address this question to you because Meredith did a fantastic job, and Tom, you showed a little bit about the screening for the student athlete, but I want to take it a little broader. Could you touch on the screening process for the entire campus utilizing the app that you showed?
Right, yeah. So every individual that works at Missouri Baptist must provide their screening information prior to coming on the campus. Any visitors that come on the campus also must do that. Prospective students will be screened in the admissions office or before they get to the admissions office outside. So there's a lot. We are taking this extremely seriously. Before students can enter the classroom, they're going to need to hold up their badge and share that, okay, I've got my green badge and I'm able to enter the classroom. So the professor will say, here's my green badge, where's yours? And
right.
Of course, there will be social distancing in the classrooms and at least 10 feet from the instructor to any student, and the instructor will have a face mask on. We are really taking extreme measures to make sure that we are trying to keep a touchless campus. No cash will be exchanged on the campus. It will only be via credit card with you inserting your credit card into the machine. So those kinds of practices that you've been seeing and that people have been getting trained in just in their own personal lives throughout the summer is very much have carried over to Missouri Baptist. And I feel very confident that if that on the campus, we can maintain this and keep this virus from really spreading. The issue will be communicating to students to be careful what they do on the weekends, to be careful in their groups, to make sure that they're wearing their masks on campus. They're to wear their masks the entire time on campus, even outside if social distancing is not maintained.
Right.
And if social distancing is maintained, then outside they're allowed to remove their masks. But we are being extremely intentional about communicating this to our student body and to faculty and staff.
Hey, Guy, why don't we jump ahead, because Tom touched on it just very briefly there, but and maybe Tom, you can answer this, and Meredith as well, but can you talk about the importance of accountability and ownership for these plans that are put in place to be successful? The importance of accountability and ownership with the students, with our staff, everyone across the board.
Meredith, you want to take a stab at it first?
Sure, I'll be pretty direct, right? If we don't have compliance, it's not going to work. We can have all this written out, all this planned out, and it makes sense, and it's to prevent the spread. But if people aren't compliant with it, it's going to, domino effects will happen, and unfortunately, seasons may not happen at that point.
Yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed, and we are starting tough, and we can lighten up a little bit down the road, maybe. But the key right now is compliance. And we are constantly talking to the coaches. They're getting daily emails about the importance of maintaining social distancing, communicating with the student athletes about how important it is to wear their masks, to wash their hands. It's just so important. But if we do those things and we create a culture of practice like that, then I think that we have a chance to get through the season.
So Tom or Mary, go. You got something, Adam?
I was just, it's those key words. It's discipline.
Yeah.
Selflessness. It's not just about you. It's about everyone.
The community.
Who you're taking that back to. And if you're doing it well, then you're also protecting your loved ones, your family, your friends, all of those that outside of your time on campus that you're in touch with. So.
Well, I know that you guys spent a lot of time certainly on this task force, and you guys worked very hard over the summer. So as Tom, I was wondering if you could share certainly, with Spartan Nation, where people can go to find information on all the university protocols and return to campus plan.
Yeah, they're right on our banner page at www.mobap.edu. And I would encourage any parent that is listening to the broadcast and any student to go out there and take a look. We do have a tracking mechanism in place as well. Should a student develop symptoms of COVID-19, we have a tracking plan. We have people that are trained to do that. But it's important for everybody to understand the guidelines that we've put in place and also the practices. For example, there will be no visitors allowed in the residence halls. And as you know, there will be no spectators at this point at our athletic events.
So Tom, with that, as we're talking about discussion on fan attendance, what is the policy for the fall then?
Well, we take great pride in our live video broadcasts and our Spartan Digital Network, and they are able to stream all of our home events. And we think that we are going to have live coverage links for both home and away events and our contests. And that can be easily found on mbuspartans.com. But I am really excited about that. We have worked just tirelessly for the last 4 or 5 years, and largely due to Adam and his team. They have done an outstanding job in putting a good live streaming platform together where we have good broadcasts. And of course, you're a broadcaster guy. Yep. And we take great pride in that. And so I think that with 3 cameras and HD and good commentators, I think that fans will still be able to get a spirit of what's going on the field, even without fans. I mean, we're bummed out. This is the first year for our football facility and our track facility and our soccer facility, lacrosse, to open up, and we can't have fans in attendance. And so we're going to take every effort to make sure we provide a professional live stream platform.
Now, with the ADs and the Council of Presidents with the AMC will reconvene at the end of the first semester to kind of reassess and look at all of the protocols and guidelines that they put in place. Is there talk at that level of, in terms of fan attendance come springtime, if guidelines with the county and elsewhere have loosened up a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was in the meeting with the Council of Presidents. I heard the discussions, and they definitely want to see fans return as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So with that, guys, this question is actually for all three of you. You guys have three completely different perspectives on this. But the big question I have for you, what has been the biggest challenge through this entire pandemic in terms of the planning? Because this is unprecedented times. And Tom, we'll start with you. So what has been the biggest challenge from your perspective?
Well, you know, the ramifications of non-compliance could be devastating to the university, could be devastating to our student body. You know, the fact that we have seniors that couldn't participate last spring, that was a bummer. And so every decision that has been made has been weighed very heavily. And I am not exaggerating when I say hundreds of hours have been put into this to try to make sure we can provide a safe environment for our student athletes, for our student body, for our faculty and staff to do these procedures. And one thing I've learned in this time is that leaders emerge. And Meredith is one of those people that has really just come to the forefront and has really contributed a lot to what I believe is a good possibility for our success this fall. So it's just, you know, it's stressful. It's been long, hard hours, but we're excited. There are students on campus right now. Classes begin Monday. And so I believe that there's hope, but we just have to comply and we have to follow that directive and those guidances.
And Meredith, how about you? Biggest challenge?
Probably the biggest challenge is that it's a fluid situation.
Right.
And the fact that we're learning things and then things will change on us and we have to learn something new. You know, people have heard me say, I went into athletic training not to learn about viruses, you know, I have somewhat of a knowledge, and I've had to dig deep and learn about COVID and what it means and how it's spread. And, you know, coaches are very good at giving you challenging questions and thinking outside the box. And I often have to go back and try and figure out how are we going to answer that question. So I have definitely been challenged through this process in just the medical sense, but also, you know, I have 8 individuals that work for me and having to relay all that information to them. And so I'll relay it and then something changes and I got to get them on the same page. So having everybody on the same page as well, making sure everybody understands what the protocols are. And then when they change, this is the change, put that old way out of your mind. Don't even think about it, you know, and adopt to this new way. And getting supplies. Supplies has been, you know, we love our vendors. We have the vendors that we always work with and they're bombarded and back ordered. So we've had to step out and venture into new vendors to try and get supplies in a timely manner so that we're ready to go and be able to provide a safe environment for these student athletes.
And Adam, obviously outside of the changing world of having to, you know, literally cut on a dime with breaking news, what's been your biggest challenge?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to Meredith's and the fluidity of the situation. And, you know, a lot of the times in the off seasons, we're working on schedules and really trying to create a game plan for how we're going to tackle each season when it comes to broadcasting, social media, you know, like putting all of those things into place. And it's hard when you have released a schedule and then something, you know, within the last, you know, 2 to 3 weeks, we've even had 2 of the teams, institutions in our conference that have pushed their fall sports entirely to the spring in Lyon College in Batesville, Arkansas, and William Woods here in the Missouri area in Fulton. And so, you know, those schedules are, you know, are ever changing and just trying to stay on top of that and being in communication with the coaching staff and Tom and Meredith and all of those key constituents. I'm going to throw the quote out there from, I'm a lifelong Notre Dame fan, and Ara Parseghian, one of their football coaches, he had said, you're going to get knocked down, but you don't lie there. you get up and face the challenge. And I mean, man, everyone, and I feel like everyone on our staff, coaches, our administrators, and you know, Tom had mentioned it at the very beginning, but man, Meredith and her staff, Tom, they're not exaggerating with the countless hours, hundreds and hundreds of hours, you know, meetings and committees and all of that. So I think, yeah, it's just trying to tackle each challenge that comes our way and roll with those punches.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. 14 minutes before we broadcast this, we had some additional guidance come out from St. Louis County regarding adult sports that I was reading. And so that's just the way it is. Meredith is exactly right. It's so fluid. And so I was quickly going through those things to see if anything impacted us. And fortunately, it doesn't look like they impact us in a negative way, but more in a positive way. But it's just so fluid that it's hard to stay caught up.
Yeah.
I think also the fact that like you solve an obstacle, but in solving that obstacle, you create 5 more obstacles for yourself.
Right.
That makes
That's
it.
right. That's right.
Well, and of course, from Adam said that you got that much more communication you have to do as well, because the athletic department here is so large. It's really amazing how all this has to work together. So guys, I know I just asked you about the obstacles under, you know, MBU athletics. I'd like to maybe take this a little personal and, you know, give you guys a chance to reflect. But we know that we've been dealing with this pandemic for a good 4 to 5 months. And the question I have for you is, what's this process been like these last 4 to 5 months? But how has your faith guided you through countless changes and challenges? And Tom, we'll start with you because, you know, this is an unprecedented time, and, you know, how has your faith guided you?
My faith has been everything. I mean, it's absolutely been everything. I come before the Lord daily and pray for wisdom. The book of James talks about that and says that when you ask in faith. And because a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways, and I ask in faith, and I believe that I need to move in faith. And so a lot of the direction has just been okay, God, you've placed me here in this role. You've placed Meredith in her role. You've placed Adam in his role. Lord, help us move in the direction that we're supposed to. Help us lead and be part of the leadership of this university. And so we can look back at this 50 years from now. I met with the staff for a staff retreat, and I challenged them, what will our legacy be? What will it be? Will we be like the World War II people that went through the Great Depression? Will people look back at the staff at Missouri Baptist University? And what I hope our legacy is that they cried out to God, and God heard them and healed their land. And so it's been everything, Guy. Yeah.
And Meredith, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's been a roller coaster road, you know, along the way, just because, you know, initially when people were closing down for 2 weeks, I'll be honest, I was like, all right, I could use some downtime. I'll work from home, you know, or just have just the student athletes present, you know.
Right.
I was pretty content with it. And then once you realize the big picture and what it meant for colleges and universities, then I was ready to say, oh, I wish COVID was gone, you know, and the fact of, you know, spending the summer on webinars or different meetings, trying to figure things out. And in all reality, nobody has the answers at the time, because in the medical world, everything's based on research. Well,
right.
Research takes time. The virus is new. So, you know, yes, CDC is changing guidelines, but that's based on the research and what they're able to find out about the virus. So it's been an overwhelming process. Emotions of, I'm okay, we're going to make it through this, we're going to figure things out, to feeling just completely discouraged and how are we going to pull this off? And I think Tom said it, you know, if I didn't have my trust in God and I didn't lean on him and give my worries to him and pull my strength from him, I don't know where I would be right now in regards to working my way through the past 4 to 5 months. That being in prayer, being in the Bible, devoting myself to devotions in the mornings, you know, really ground me and allow me to then be focused on it's not about me. It's not about my struggles or what I'm going through. It's about the students that are coming back to Missouri Baptist University, and how are we going to provide a safe environment for them? And so, I've grown through it. I've had my struggles through it, but I was listening to Joy FM this morning, and, they said a quote of, you can have emotions, you can have fear, but also have joy in it.
Mhm.
That kind of summed up the last 5 months for me. Yeah, it's been scary. There's been moments of fear, but at the same time, the joy and the fact that I've been able to spend additional time with my family is a positive for me. So without God though, I don't know that I would be able to make it through with a sound mind.
Yeah, and Adam, how about you? And you got two young ones now, and how, what's the last 4 to 5 months been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I've 100% leaned on the Lord's presence. We welcomed a newborn into this crazy COVID world in June, and there's so much uncertainty and so much anxiety, but you can always lean on the Lord for that everlasting, like, that peace and in His presence. And so, it's been a wild 4 to 5 months as we were preparing to welcome a new one into the world, and now that she is here, I've been really trying to count my blessings, being for us to all still have jobs. I think everyone can echo my statements on that we're thankful to still be working here and for the mission of Missouri Baptist University. So
Absolutely, guys. And what I'd like to do to wrap up this broadcast is just give you guys each the opportunity on any final, parting thought or shot here, as we wrap up. And Tom, we'll start with you.
Well, I've instructed Andrea Robb, our Director of Spirit Programs, to make sure that Spartacus has a face screen shield. And so we're working on that. I don't want him out in public unless he's wearing his face shield.
That's awesome. Meredith, how about you?
No, just excited to be back, excited to have student athletes around and, see what this fall brings for us.
Yeah, and Adam?
On Meredith, it's good to be back. It's good to be surrounded by our colleagues. But most importantly, I think for all of us, it's the students, and it is so refreshing to be back in the presence of those student athletes, and I just, I hope and pray that we can do this together. It may be cliche, but the NAI has a hashtag going right now that's NAI together, but it's all about doing this, doing this as one and coming together to let's get through this. And because I think we're all in a better, place when we have, what we love being around and that being active. So.
Well, I just want to give you my own personal parting shot. I've been part of the Fall Faculty Conference, and I know, Tom, you've been part of that too. The last 2 days, I really have to give a massive shout out to our administration, from President Keith Ross all the way down with the vice presidents, because the training, the protocols, the perspectives, the prayer, there's so many things that we went through these last 2 days that we are so prepared as faculty to, really tackle the fall, knowing what we're facing, still knowing, like Meredith said, we don't have every answer, of course, but I tell you what, it's just nice to know with all the precautions we're taking, all the protocols we have, and just to get back into the classroom, whether it's face-to-face, hybrid, or certainly, in the virtual environment online. I know that we've been given the tools we need to provide a quality education for our students and as well as our student athletes. So from that standpoint, I am so excited to be back in the classroom on Mondays. I got 2 classes that are hybrid, and then of course I'll have my online classes. So just want to say thank you, administration, for all the things and countless hours you guys have put in to make this really the best it could possibly be as we kick off classes on Monday. So that's been such a blessing to be part of these last couple of days. So with that, guys, we want to thank you guys for tuning into the special edition broadcast right here on the Spartan Digital Network with our COVID-19 update. And we certainly look forward to giving you guys more information as they become available. So obviously be checking out our social media channels through Adam and his entire team, and anything else that comes out, we're going to be the first to be getting that news to you. For our group of panelists, we want to thank you guys for taking the time. And my name's Guy Danoff again. We just want to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time on the Spartan Digital Network.